Welcome to the ninth seminar for English teaching professionals entitled Spice It Up, Innovative Activities for Your Class. Today, we have the honor of hosting Marco Alvarado Barbosa, a distinguished professor who recently led an insightful workshop titled Spice It Up, Creative and Effective Assessment in the EFL Classroom. In this interview, we will summarize the key points from his session and discuss the importance of using innovative and practical assessment strategies that engage our students, giving special attention to the use of technology. Before getting into the actual interview, I want to share some biographical information about our presenter. Marco Alvarado Barbosa holds a master's degree in education with an emphasis in educational administration from Universidad de Costa Rica, a licentiate degree in teaching with an emphasis in English language instruction from UNED, a bachelor's degree in English language teaching from the UCR, and a bachelor's degree in English language teaching for first and second cycle from UNED. Professor Alvarado currently works as the director of the graduate program in educational sciences at Universidad de Costa Rica, coordinator of the licentiate degree in educational administration at Universidad de Costa Rica, and coordinator of the master's degree in legal management of education in the graduate program in educational sciences at Universidad de Costa Rica. He is a member of the editorial board of the Gestión de la Educación journal. He is also a member of the International Network for Research and Practice in Educational Leadership. At UNED, he is a professor in the Department of Methodology and Evaluation in the English teaching major. Mr. Barbosa was an English teacher at MEP for 11 years. We will now get into the questions we have for you to learn just a little bit more through this brief interview. My first question is, what inspired you to focus on transforming traditional assessment into something more creative, authentic, and student-centered in the EFL classroom?
Well, first of all, thank you for your question. Um, I think that we have a wrong perception of assessment. Most of the time, we see it as a punishment in which we have, um, this perception from the students. So I think that we have to change our students' mind first. And when we implement different activities in our classes, we have to consider students' needs, likes, dislikes, fears, and understand that we all learn in a different way. So if we learn in a different way, we also have to assess in different and creative ways. I think that what inspires me is the progress that I see in my students learning. And something important is that I enjoy more when I apply this kind of assessments, a little bit more creative with games, with activities. It should be student-centered because students are the protagonists of the learning, and authentic because we need to prepare them for real life. That's what we have to keep in mind, that we are preparing students to be in front of a real world. So they need to be prepared for that.
Thank you so much for your answer. And you touched a little bit on my second question. In your workshop, you mentioned three pillars in language assessment: formative, authentic, and participatory assessment. How do these pillars interact, and why are they essential for effective language learning?
Okay, well, language assessment is formative because we implement it regularly, right? So we need to get information from our students in order to make decisions. Sometimes we apply an activity, we assess that activity, and based on that, we make a decision. We can decide, okay, this student needs more practice, or this student is ready to continue with the next topic. So that's formative. But at the same time, based on what I mentioned before, it needs to be authentic because we have to place students in real life context. Okay, so students need to see that they are learning with a purpose. Okay, they need to see that what they are studying is related to what they usually do or what they can face in real life. I always give an example that it's not the same to say in a test, for example, in a question, to say, okay, tell me three sentences in simple past. That's not real life. Students don't face that. But when they talk to a person, a foreigner, or a person who speaks English, the person might ask, "What did you do last weekend?" Okay, that's a purpose for a student. And it needs to be participatory since they are the protagonist. I mean, they need to be part of this process of assessing. The teacher, it's 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 a facilitator, so we need to help them to guide them, but they are the protagonist. And it is essential. I mean, those pillars are essential to evaluate learning process also, to see the process and the progress that students are having in their classes.
Thank you so much. The third question I have for you is if you could share an example of a gamified or tech-enhanced assessment strategy that has worked particularly well with EFL learners from your experience.
Well, I think that nowadays it's not a secret that with technology, we have access to a huge variety of games and opportunities, okay, to implement in class. We can download templates. There are some templates actually that we can modify according to our students' needs and the context that we have. We can also design and prepare games online and games that are already, I mean, that they are ready in different websites just to implement them in classes. Um, I have different apps that I have used, like Genially, Educa Play, Wordwall. They are very easy and accessible, and they are free. But I also think that we cannot forget to go back to the roots. I mean, technology is one part of gamification, but we can also have certain games or activities to implement formative assessment, especially with TPR. There are a lot of games that are really engaging for students that they keep them um, like very active with an active participation, and in these cases we the only thing that I think that we have to consider is the age, the student's age. I mean, it's not the same to work with a first grade student because they are very enthusiastic and they enjoy a lot the activities and they like to move. But when you start applying a game with a student with a fifth grader or a sixth grader, it's different. I mean, you have to consider to take into consideration their likes, their needs with the game that you are going to use because sometimes they are a little bit more shy. I mean, they could be shyer or a little bit more or less engaged because they don't like the game. So, um, considering those aspects, I think that games are a very good alternative to assess with the students. Um, Games, there are different games for TPR, the hot potato or changing places or Simon Says. There are a lot of activities that if we go back to the roots, they also help us to assess students in a different and creative way.
Wonderful. Thank you. My next question, what role do self and peer assessment play in developing learner autonomy and motivation in the EFL classroom?
Okay. Um, the idea of self-assessment and peer assessment is usually rejected by teachers. You know, they don't trust in in this kind of assessment because most of the time um, they consider that students are not mature enough to apply this kind of assessment to implement them. But we have to understand that there are some key aspects or advantages about using self-assessment or peer assessment. First of all, is that we have or we can encourage self-regulation. I mean, students can monitor their own progress and identify their strengths and weaknesses, and that's very useful for them. Also, they can develop critical thinking. They little by little they can start reflecting on their process, and that's very important. The idea of become active participants rather than passive recipients. That helps a lot because unconsciously they realize that they are learning, that they are progressing, and that's very important for them. And I think that they also feel more confident, okay, because they see their progress, but also they can give feedback to their peers, and that's very important. This is like when you are doing the when you are learning in the university, and you see a lot of theory, but when you start teaching, you learn more. The same happens with the students. When they give feedback, they understand more the things that they are studying. And also it's very collaborative. Students can collaborate, and that helps a lot, not only um, in terms of language, but also in terms of like for life in general, that they have to collaborate and participate to working in pairs, in groups. That helps a lot. But I think that something really, really important regarding to your question is that we have to guide the process. I mean, we help with it. I mean, the assessment, this kind of assessment helps with the autonomy, but we have to guide the process. We cannot forget that. We have to give clear instructions. And also, if we are going to use handouts or activities, the handouts need to have clear instructions also. And little by little, it's a process. I mean, little by little, they are going to learn how to develop this autonomy with self-assessment and peer assessment.
Yes, thank you so much. And our last question, in your experience, what mindset shifts do teachers need to make in order to embrace these more dynamic forms of assessment?
Mhm. Well, first of all, I think that I do understand that teachers experience different realities. That's true. That's a reality. Okay. Sometimes they feel that they can implement other types of assessment or dynamic activities. But I think that we have to consider certain things. Mm, the first that I motivate teachers is that we have to avoid underestimating our students. Sometimes we underestimate them, and we think before we put into practice activities that they are not able to do it. And then they surprise us. And it's because we underestimate them a lot. Another thing that it's very important and that I always um, tell my students is that we have to take risks. I mean, in the first time that we implement one activity, maybe it works or maybe not, but we have to continue taking risks. If it doesn't work, nothing happens. We are going to reflect about the activity that we implemented and analyze, make the changes that we need to make, and then we start again and we apply the same. And maybe in that moment it works perfectly, or maybe not, but we continue. It's teaching, and this part of assessing, it's a learning process for the teacher too. So we have to take risks, and this is the shift that we have to make in our minds, that we have to continue learning, investigating, and researching about different ways, different techniques, learning, uh, applying, implementing the activities, and then we learn from that, from the experience also. So these two things, I think that those are the two things that we have to work with our teachers, considering that it's a learning process for us, and also to never underestimate our students.
Thank you so much. And we want to thank you, Marco, for sharing your insights on using innovative and practical assessment strategies that engage our students, especially giving attention to the use of technology. Your expertise has encouraged us to try to use more innovative and practical assessment strategies to engage our students in our language classrooms. For more information on topics covered in this seminar, please visit our website. The details are available on the screen.